So to really jump into sort of what I was talking about earlier, WordPress has to be run on a web server. So how many of you guys have a domain name and hosting space already? Maybe a better question is, how many people don't? Okay, well, you're in luck. There's a really nice quote that I use on my conferences that says that the power of the press exists to people who can afford a press. Affording a press in today's day and age has never been easier or cheaper. You can go and purchase a domain name through GoDaddy or one of the other domain registrars for literally $11 or $12 a year. And hosting space can be picked up through either HostGator for $6 to $10 a month, or if you want something a little bit more robust, Media Temple, which is anywhere from $20 to $25. Media Temple obviously offers a lot more features. I'm not going to go into the compare and contrast, but either one of those two will offer you space to host WordPress. Now the good news is that both of those hosts, and practically every other host on the internet that's worth using, will actually allow you to install WordPress by pushing one button. HostGator has what's called Fantastico, and Media Temple has a built-in installer, both of which will install, create all the necessary files for you, create all of the necessary databases, and actually install WordPress for you. So let me walk you into the back end of what the hosting environment looks like. And I'm actually going to install WordPress onto a website while we're talking. So hopefully I won't do like I did at one of my conferences and show my password to 50 people. It was a really long night changing my password on everything after that. So this is HostGator. I use a reseller account. Most of the HostGator options use what's called cPanel. cPanel is a really easy way for somebody to be able to go in and manage their website. So if you scroll down to the bottom, and the shared hosting with HostGator looks very similar to this, and you'll see the same buttons. You'll see down here where it says Fantastico Deluxe. You can click that, and it takes you into a software installation page. Obviously, this is my development site. I've got about 20 installs of WordPress running on here. So you click on WordPress, and then click on New Installation. So we're going to call this NashvilleTech. My name is Mitch, and my password is Mitch. Mitch. Fill out all the information. So we'll call this NashvilleTech test site. I'll fill that in automatically. So basically it asks you for what domain, which that'll be filled in for you. What directory? I'm installing it into a subdirectory. You can install it in your root directory, which means that if you just go to whatever your domain name is.com, WordPress will be accessed. So you don't have to keep it into a subfolder. You can actually put it in the main folder of your website. And then it asks you for all of the information. So your nickname, your email address, your username, the password you want, and then what you want the site to be called. I click the Install WordPress button. Read over, make sure everything's correct. It tells me what databases are going to be created. And there I go. There's a new WordPress installation waiting for me at dev.studionashvegas.com/NashvilleTech. Everybody's is that simple. If you want to do it, excuse me. If you want to do it manually, there are a few things that you need to know. And I'm not going to cover this because most of you guys probably aren't techie power guys. If there are in the room, awesome. This part's for you. There's 4 things that WordPress needs to be able to work effectively. A Linux server, Apache, which is the web server software, MySQL, MySQL, preferably a version in the 5s, and PHP, also preferably 5.
What was before MySQL?
Apache. Linux is the operating system. Apache is the web server software. MySQL is the databases that we use to install the content into. And PHP is the programming language that WordPress is written in. This is more commonly known as a LAMP stack. It's very open source friendly, and open source software runs really, really well on a Linux machine. There is a way to do it on a Windows server. It's a lot more complicated. So if you haven't bought hosting space yet, it's always better to go with a Linux server because WordPress is optimized for Linux. I'm not going to get into Linux versus Windows as far as which is better. It's just been written for and optimized for a Linux server. And those four aspects work together. And basically, when you go to a WordPress site, here's what happens. When you access the web server, the PHP code running on the WordPress site goes and fetches information from the database that's dependent on what page you're on. If you're on the home page, for example, it goes and fetches the last 10 blog posts by default and displays those in HTML on the screen. If you're looking at a single article, it goes and fetches that single article from the database and displays that for you in HTML so that your web browser can read it. Okay? So, and if you don't have the pretty permalinks on, which I'll talk about in a second, you can actually see that these database calls are being made because the site looks like MitchCanter.com !page_ID equals 42. Luckily, WordPress takes care of all the heavy lifting on the making it look pretty, and that turns it into /about instead of all of that convoluted stuff. So WordPress is super easy to install. Like I said, hosting space is pretty much a dime a dozen now. Domain names, a lot of times if you purchase hosting space, your domain name, if you don't have one, they can usually give you a deal on that, especially if you call in. I don't recommend using them, but GoDaddy will give you a domain for $2 if you buy hosting space with them. Like I said, though, I don't recommend that because there's a lot of security issues with GoDaddy servers. So, like I said, HostGator and Media Temple are my two of choice that I recommend to my clients. One is a little bit more basic, one is a little more advanced. They ultimately will both do the same thing. So we've just created a new WordPress installation. Let's go take a look at it. So first of all, let's just see what we've created first. Okay, so it looks just like, this is the default theme for WordPress. You'll probably see it pop up quite a bit. So what we've got is a basic WordPress installation that we've set up. We've put in the title, we've put in the description, it drops some content in just so you can show it. It can show you something besides a blank page. And then there are some default widgets thrown into the sidebar, which I'll talk about widgets. Basically, if you install this and you don't care what your site looks like, you're absolutely ready to log in and start posting content. Let's log in and I can show you sort of what the back end of the website looks like, because that's where all of the magic happens. So there's a login portion of the site down here. You can actually also insert WP-admin into the web browser after your URL, and that will take you to a screen that looks like this. I think I just put in Mitch 1, 2, 3. You got to start remembering these things when I create them. Okay.
Now, is this using WordPress.org or .com?
This particular item is WordPress.org. Like I said, WordPress.com is more of a free, it's sort of like Blogger, because basically it's hosted somewhere else, and the URL that you get is something.wordpress.com. With a .org downloadable, installable version like this, you actually can get whatever URL name that you have access to. So you can have www.yoururl.com and run the entire site or blog on WordPress without having the .wordpress.com part in it. And yes, you can purchase the ability to do that with WordPress.com, but if you really, really want to have full power over WordPress, buy some hosting space, buy a domain, and install it, and follow some of the stuff we'll talk about tonight, because that's where the fun stuff comes in. So this is the dashboard of WordPress, and you look at it and you may go, oh my god, what am I looking at? So basically WordPress is divided into two different kinds of things going on, okay? We've got content, and then we've got administrative stuff. The content is all over here on the left side of the panel between posts and comments, okay? And there are two types of content we'll talk about. Down here is all of the administrative stuff, appearance, plugins, which add functionality, users who can log into your site and do stuff, tools, importing from another website, exporting to another website, and then all of the general settings, okay? So and I'll go into the settings and some of the good best practices, but for now I want to just talk about content.